Galactic Empire furious after short. Humans crushed them in battle. The first human station the Galactic Empire saw did not look like a fortress. It floated quietly near the edge of a yellow star, made of clean white panels and wide glass rings that reflected the soft light of space. Long, thin ships moved in and out like calm birds returning to a nest. There were no sharp towers, no glowing weapons, no signs of fear or defense. To the Empire, it looked like a place built for comfort, not strength. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship, High Commander Verx stood tall and still. He was nearly twice the height of a human, with long limbs and silver-blue skin that shimmered under the ship's lights. Around him, officers whispered in low tones, watching the human station on the main screen. "They really live here?" one officer asked. "So close to open space. So exposed." Verx folded his arms behind his back. "They believe themselves safe," he said. "That is often the first sign of weakness." The Galactic Empire had ruled for centuries. Their ships were massive, their fleets powerful, and their name alone had ended many conflicts before they began. When they heard about a small, fast-growing species called humans, they were curious. When they learned humans were short, soft-looking, and focused on trade instead of conquest, they were amused. The Empire decided to visit. A formal greeting signal was sent. The human station responded almost instantly. "Galactic Empire vessel, this is Station Horizon. Welcome to human space. We are ready to receive your delegation." The voice was calm and friendly, not afraid, not proud, just ready. Verx gave a slow nod. "Prepare the shuttle." The shuttle crossed the short distance between the massive Imperial ship and the human station. As it docked, the doors opened with a soft hiss. Warm light filled the entrance hall and smooth metal floors stretched out ahead. The air felt clean and comfortable. A group of humans waited. They were shorter than Verx expected. Most reached only his chest. They stood in simple uniforms, blue and white, with small symbols on their shoulders. Their faces were open and curious, not tense. A human woman stepped forward. Her hair was dark and tied back. Her eyes were steady. "I am Director Lena Park," she said. "Welcome to Horizon Station." Verx looked down at her. "I am High Commander Verx of the Galactic Empire. We have come to observe your species and your territory." "Of course," Lena said with a small smile. "We're happy to show you around." The walk through the station surprised the Empire's officers. Humans moved quickly but calmly, working at screens, talking in soft voices, carrying tools and data pads. There were windows everywhere, showing the stars, the nearby planet, and the steady movement of ships. "This place is not built like a military base," one officer muttered. "No," Lena said, hearing him. "It's built like a home." They were led to a wide observation room. A large screen showed a map of the surrounding space, filled with small glowing markers. "These are your ships?" Verx asked. "Yes," Lena replied. "Trade ships, research vessels, and station transports." "So few," Verx said. "So enough," Lena answered. The words made Verx pause. After a short exchange of formal greetings and offers of shared data, Verx moved to the real reason for the visit. "The Galactic Empire believes in understanding strength," he said. "We test the limits of new species so we know how to work with them." Lena tilted her head slightly. "And how do you test that?" "Through demonstration," Verx replied. "A controlled engagement, no harm, no damage, just a show of capability." Some of the humans in the room exchanged looks. Lena took a moment before speaking. "You want a battle." "A display," Verx corrected, "between our fleets and yours." Lena nodded slowly. "I see." She turned to one of her officers and spoke quietly. The officer tapped on a wrist screen and left the room. "You believe we are weak," Lena said, looking back at Verx. Verx did not deny it. "You are small, you do not show power, you do not rule others." "We don't," Lena agreed, "but we do prepare." Verx raised an eyebrow. "Prepare for what?" "For the day someone stronger comes," she said simply. A soft sound filled the room. The large screen changed. It now showed a wide open area of space, marked with glowing lines and zones. "This is a training field," Lena said. "We use it for fleet exercises. We can meet you there." Verx studied the display. "Very well." The Empire's fleet moved into position. Massive ships formed clean, sharp lines. Their engines glowed bright and their shields shimmered like walls of light. The human fleet arrived next. Their ships were smaller, faster. They did not line up. They spread out, moving in wide, loose patterns like a group of fish in open water. Verx watched from the bridge of his ship. "They don't even know how to form ranks," an officer said with a quiet laugh. Verks did not laugh. He watched closely. The exercise began. The Empire's ships moved forward in a slow, powerful wave. Energy systems charged not to fire but to lock on and track targets. The humans did not rush. Their ships drifted, turned, and adjusted, always staying just outside the Empire's direct lines. Suddenly, one of the Empire's screens flickered. "Commander," an officer said, "we are receiving false signals." Another voice joined in. "Our tracking systems are showing multiple positions for the same human ships." Verks stepped closer to the main display. The human fleet now appeared as dozens of moving lights instead of a few. "They are using signal echoes," he said. The Empire adjusted their systems. Then the map changed again. Zones of space lit up in soft colors. The Empire's ships moved into them without noticing. "What are these areas?" Verks asked. "Unknown," an officer replied. "No energy readings, no physical objects." The humans' ships suddenly moved not toward the Empire but around them. "Commander," another officer said, "our movement paths are being altered." The Empire's ships slowed. Their engines responded, but with a slight delay, not enough to stop them, but enough to make precise movement difficult. Verks's eyes narrowed. "They are shaping the field," he said. On the human station, Lena watched the same map. "Phase 1 complete," an officer said. "Good," Lena replied. "Let them feel it, but don't trap them yet." The Empire tried to regroup. Their ships turned, but the glowing zones shifted. The human fleet moved like a net, not closing in, but guiding. "Commander," an officer said, "we are being directed into a cluster." Verks realized what was happening. The humans were not attacking, they were leading. One by one, the Empire's ships found themselves drifting into a wide, open space where their systems slowed and their signals overlapped. "Engines still functional," an officer reported, "but navigation is limited." The human ship stopped at the edge of the zone. A message appeared on the Empire's screen. "This is Director Park," Lena's voice said. "Your ships are safe. Your systems will return to normal when you exit the field. This area is part of our training network. It helps us learn how to move in difficult conditions." Verks stood in silence. "You built all this," he said quietly. "Yes," Lena replied. "Over many years, we don't like surprises." The Empire's ships slowly moved out of the zone. Their systems returned to full strength. No damage, no shots fired, no victories claimed. But the message was clear. Back on Horizon Station, Verks stood once more in the observation room. "You did not fight," he said. "No," Lena replied. "We showed you how we think." Verks looked at the human ships on the screen, small and steady in the vast dark. "You are not what we expected," he said. Lena smiled gently. "We hear that a lot." As the Empire's fleet prepared to leave, whispers spread across their ships, not of weakness, not of size, but of a species that did not need to be loud to be strong. The Galactic Empire fleet did not leave human space in silence. Inside every ship, officers and crews spoke in low, tense voices. They replayed sensor data, navigation logs, and system reports again and again. No weapons had been used. No shields had been broken. Yet the feeling that stayed with them was the same as if they had been defeated. High Commander Verks stood alone in his private chamber, looking at a floating map of the training field. The glowing zones still pulsed softly in his memory. He had faced powerful enemies before. He had seen worlds fall and fleets scatter, but he had never seen a species win without trying to win. "They did not challenge our strength," he whispered to himself. "They challenged our thinking." Back on Horizon Station, life returned to its normal rhythm. Human crews walked the halls with cups of warm drinks in their hands. Engineers laughed quietly over a shared screen. Cargo drones moved along their paths, carrying supplies to waiting ships. From the outside, nothing had changed. But inside the station's command center, Director Lena Park stood with her senior team, watching long-range scanners. "The Empire fleet has moved beyond the border," an officer reported. "They are holding position near the neutral zone." Lena nodded. "They're thinking." "They might come back," another officer said. "They will," Lena replied, "but not the same way." Days passed. Galactic news networks began to talk. Small civilizations, trade groups, and independent systems shared stories of the Empire's visit to human space. Some stories were exaggerated, some were wrong, but all of them carried the same idea. The humans were not weak. On the Empire's capital world, towering spires of crystal and metal rose into a sky filled with flying transports. In the Grand Hall of Command, Verks stood before the High Council. The room was vast, filled with long rows of seats and glowing symbols of the Empire's long history. "You faced them," one of the counselors said, "and you returned without proof of their limits." Verks lifted his head. "We returned with proof of our own." A low murmur spread through the hall. "They did not meet us with force," Verks continued. "They met us with preparation. They turned space itself into their shield." Another counselor leaned forward. "They are small, their fleet is limited, their territory is narrow." "Yes," Verks said, "and yet they controlled us without touching us." The council fell silent. "Then what do you suggest?" the lead counselor asked. Verks took a slow breath. "We should learn from them." That answer was not welcomed by all. Some leaders called for a second demonstration, larger and more direct. Others warned that pushing the humans could turn a quiet neighbor into a dangerous one. In the end, the council chose a middle path. They would send an envoy. A single ship, peaceful and open, carrying observers instead of soldiers. When the human long-range scanners detected the small Imperial vessel, Lena was already waiting in the command center. "They kept their word," she said softly. The envoy ship docked at Horizon Station just like before. But this time only one figure stepped through the doors. It was Verks, no guards, no officers, just him. Lena met him in the same bright hall as before. "You came alone," she said. "Yes," Verks replied. "I wanted to see you without ranks and reports between us." Lena gestured for him to walk with her. They moved through the station's main ring, past wide windows and quiet workspaces. Humans nodded politely as they passed. Some stared, curious. Others simply went back to their tasks. "You live like this all the time?" Verks asked. "Yes," Lena said. "Busy, sometimes messy, but it works." They stopped at a large viewing platform. A nearby planet filled half the window, blue and green and alive. "Why build a station here?" Verks asked. "So far from your homeworld." Lena rested her hands on the rail. "Because we don't like staying in one place. We like learning what's beyond the next horizon." Verks considered her words. On the platform, a group of human students were gathered around a floating model of a star system. A teacher pointed at planets and paths, explaining how gravity pulled and pushed everything in slow, invisible dances. "They teach their young this?" Verks asked. "Yes," Lena said. "Early, we believe understanding how things move helps you understand how to move yourself." Verks watched the students' faces. They were focused, curious, unafraid to ask questions. "On my world," he said, "we teach obedience first, then skill. Then if there is time, curiosity." Lena turned to look at him. "And which one do you think lasts the longest?" Verks did not answer right away. They continued their walk, passing through a section of the station filled with plants, real plants. Trees and flowers growing under soft lights. "You grow life in metal," Verks said. "It reminds us where we come from," Lena replied, "and what we're protecting." They reached a quiet room with a single table and 2 chairs. "Sit," Lena said. "Let's talk without maps or fleets." They sat across from each other. "Why did you really come?" Lena asked. Verks folded his long hands together. "Because my people are afraid." Lena raised an eyebrow. "Not of your ships," Verks said, "but of what you represent, a way of surviving that does not rely on control." Lena leaned back slightly. "We don't want to control anyone." "That is exactly what frightens them," Verks said. "An empire understands power, it does not understand choice." Lena was silent for a moment. "Then let's help you understand it," she said. She tapped a small device on the table. The room filled with a soft glow and a 3-dimensional map of human space appeared. "This is our network," Lena explained. "Stations, colonies, research posts, each one is connected, but none of them answers to a single voice. We share information, we share help, but every place decides its own path." Verks studied the glowing lines. "That seems unstable." "It is," Lena said, "and that's why it's strong. If one part fails, the rest keep going." Verks slowly nodded. On the Empire's ship, far from the station, news of the envoy's visit spread through the fleet. Some officers were uneasy, others were curious. "He walks among them like an equal," one whispered. "He is trying to understand them," another replied. Back on Horizon Station, Lena led Verks to a control room overlooking the training field. "This is where we practice," she said. "Not just flying, thinking together." A group of human pilots and engineers worked around a wide table, discussing a problem on the screen. "Our signals keep crossing here," one said. "Then we change the pattern," another replied. "Let them move into the gap instead of away from it." Verks watched as they tested ideas, failed, laughed, and tried again. "They are not afraid to be wrong," he said. No, Lena replied. Being wrong is how we get better. Verks felt something shift inside him. For the first time in his long career, he wondered what the Empire might become if it allowed itself to question instead of command. When it was time for him to leave, they returned to the docking hall. You didn't come to show me your strength today, Verks said. No, Lena replied. I came to show you our people. Verks bowed his head slightly, a rare gesture among his kind. I will carry this back to my council, he said. Whether they listen or not, that part is beyond my control. Lena smiled. That's something we both understand. As Verks stepped onto his ship and the doors closed behind him, Horizon Station faded into the quiet light of the stars. Across human space, small ships continued their journeys. Students continued their lessons. Engineers continued their work. The galaxy was beginning to change, not because of a battle, but because two very different worlds had started to listen to each other. The Empire's capital world had never felt so quiet. High Commander Verks stood on a wide balcony high above the city, looking down at the endless lines of lights that marked streets, towers, and transport paths. The sky was filled with slow-moving ships, each one following perfect, ordered routes. Everything moved as it always had. Everything was controlled. And yet, inside the Grand Hall of Command, nothing felt certain anymore. The High Council had called an emergency gathering. Leaders from across the Empire filled the chamber, their tall forms casting long shadows on the glowing floor. The air was heavy with tension and unspoken fear. Verks took his place at the center. You walked among the humans, the lead counselor said. You saw their world with your own eyes. Now tell us what you learned. Verks straightened. I learned that their strength does not come from their ships or their systems. It comes from how they think together. A low sound of disagreement moved through the hall. They are divided, another counselor said. They do not follow a single command. That makes them weak. Verks shook his head. That makes them hard to break. If you remove one voice in the Empire, the whole system feels it. If you remove one voice among the humans, the others grow louder. Silence followed. Their people question their leaders, Verks continued. Their leaders listen. Their children are taught to ask why instead of only how. A counselor leaned forward. And you believe this makes them a threat? I believe it makes them a mirror, Verks replied. One that shows us what we could become, or what we might lose if we ignore them. The lead counselor raised a hand. Enough, we did not call this meeting for philosophy. We called it because the galaxy is watching. Holographic screens lit up around the hall, showing reports from border systems and trade routes. Smaller civilizations are requesting contact with the humans, the counselor said. They are asking for shared stations, shared training, shared knowledge. Verks felt a slow, deep sense of understanding. They are choosing, he said softly. The council's faces tightened. An empire cannot allow choice to replace order, one of them said. Verks stepped forward. An empire cannot survive if order becomes a cage. The words echoed in the vast hall. Back on Horizon Station, Lena Park stood in the command center, watching similar reports scroll across the main screen. Messages from distant systems, independent worlds, and trade unions arrived one after another. They want to visit, an officer said. Some want to learn how we built the training field. Others want to see how our network works. Lena nodded. We'll welcome them. But we don't turn into teachers. We stay partners. The station grew busier than ever. New ships arrived daily. Delegates from different species walked the halls, their shapes and colors filling the open spaces with quiet wonder. Humans guided them, answered questions, and shared meals in the wide communal areas. The station began to feel less like a human outpost and more like a small piece of the galaxy itself. One day, a message arrived from the Empire. It was not from the High Council. It was from Verks. Lena read it alone in her office. Director Park, the message said, my people stand at a crossroads. I do not know which path they will choose, but I know which one I would walk if given the chance. I ask for your help not as a commander, but as a student. Lena leaned back in her chair and smiled softly. She sent a simple reply. You already know where to find us. The next time Verks arrived at Horizon Station, he did not come as an envoy. He came as a visitor. He wore simple clothing instead of his formal armor. He carried no symbols of rank. When he stepped through the docking doors, he looked less like a leader of an empire and more like a traveler stepping into a new world. Lena met him with a warm nod. Welcome back, she said. Thank you for letting me return, Verks replied. They walked together through the station once more, but this time, Verks stopped often. He watched. He listened. He sat with human engineers as they repaired a damaged drone, asking why they chose one method over another. He joined a group of students as they worked on a navigation problem, letting them explain their ideas to him. He shared a meal with station workers, learning about their families and their hopes for the future. For the first time in his life, no one treated him as someone who must be obeyed. They treated him as someone who could learn. One evening, Lena took Verks to the edge of the station's outer ring. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass. "You look different," she said. "I feel different," Verks replied. "On my world, every step I take is watched. Every word I speak is weighed. Here I can simply be." Lena nodded. "That's something we forget sometimes. Freedom needs space to breathe." Verks turned to her. "My people believe freedom leads to chaos." "And what do you believe now?" Lena asked. Verks thought for a long moment. "I believe chaos is what happens when people are never allowed to choose," he said. Far away, on the Empire's capital world, the High Council debated late into the night. Reports continued to arrive. More systems were aligning themselves with human trade networks. More worlds were adopting shared research agreements. The Empire was not losing territory. It was losing influence. Some counselors called for a firm response. Not violence, but stronger control, more rules, more demands. Others quietly began to question. One of them stood and spoke. "We have ruled by being the largest voice in the room," the counselor said. "But now there are many voices. We can try to shout over them, or we can learn to listen." The room fell silent. Back on Horizon Station, a small gathering took place in the central hall. Delegates from 3 different species stood beside human representatives. They signed a simple agreement to share navigation data and emergency support across their regions of space. No grand ceremony, no flags, just a shared understanding. Verks watched from the side. "This is how you build alliances?" he asked Lena. "Yes," she replied. "One promise at a time." Verks felt a strange mix of pride and sadness. He was proud of what he was seeing. He was sad because he knew how far his own people were from something like this. One night, Verks sent a message back to the High Council. It was not a report. It was not a warning. It was a story. He wrote about the students who argued over star paths and laughed when they made mistakes. About the engineers who stayed late to fix a problem that wasn't even theirs. About the way humans shared their space without asking who deserved it more. He ended with a simple line. "They are not building an empire, they are building a place where no empire is needed." Days passed. No reply came. Then, finally, a single message arrived. "Return home." Verks stood in the quiet of the docking bay, staring at the words. Lena approached him. "They want you back," she said. "Yes," Verks replied, "and I don't know if they want to hear what I've learned or if they want me to forget it." Lena placed a hand on the smooth metal rail beside him. "You can't forget who you've become," she said. Verks gave a small, slow nod. Before he left, Lena handed him a small device. "What is this?" he asked. "A link to our network," she said. "Not for commands, not for control. Just for listening." Verks held it carefully. "I will carry this with me," he said, "even if I must hide it." As his ship pulled away from Horizon Station, the familiar blue and white lights faded into the dark. Across the galaxy, choices were being made in quiet rooms and bright halls. Not about fleets or borders, but about what kind of future the stars would hold. The Empire's capital was quieter than usual. Ships moved along the skyways in their regular patterns, workers followed precise schedules, and the counselors met in the grand halls as they always had. But something had changed. High Commander Verks felt it with every step he took along the crystal corridors of his city. The humans had shown him something the Empire had never known, not strength in weapons, not power in rank, but a power that could not be ignored. Verks had returned from Horizon Station carrying more than reports. He carried a new way of thinking. It pressed against the walls of the Grand Hall, brushing against every counselor as he walked in. They looked at him with the same mix of curiosity and unease they always reserved for their commanders. "The humans are not like us," Verks began. His voice echoed softly across the vast hall. "They do not fight to dominate, they do not seek to control, and yet they are more prepared than any empire we have built." One counselor, tall and strict, spoke first. "Commander, you speak in riddles. How can a species without armies and without fleets rival us?" Verks lifted a hand. "They do not rival through force. They rival through unity, through intelligence, and through flexibility. I watched them guide an entire fleet without firing a single weapon. They shape the battlefield with their thinking alone. The counselor frowned, leaning forward. That is not strength, that is luck. Verks shook his head. Luck does not prepare a fleet to navigate uncertainty. Luck does not teach children to see patterns in chaos. Luck does not create systems where every member contributes without fear or expectation of reward. A murmur spread across the chamber. Counselors exchanged uneasy glances. None of them had seen Verks like this before. His usual confidence had softened into a quiet intensity. Then tell us, another counselor demanded, what is their secret? Verks took a deep breath. Their secret is human ingenuity. They train for the unexpected. They expect failure. They share knowledge, not hide it. They build networks of cooperation that stretch across star systems. And most of all, they never underestimate their own potential or the potential of others. The council fell silent again. Silence in the Empire was rare. It meant that the words had reached them. Verks did not stop. He pulled a small device from his pocket, a communication link Lena Park had given him before he left Horizon Station. He activated it, and the chamber filled with the gentle glow of a three-dimensional map of human space. Look at this, he said. These are their stations, their colonies, their research outposts. Every location operates independently, but all are connected. Problems are shared, solutions are shared, resources are shared. If one station falls behind, another fills the gap. They do not command, they cooperate. A counselor leaned closer to the projection. It is impressive. Yes, Verks said softly, and dangerous for us if we refuse to learn. The room grew tense. Some counselors whispered about action, about returning to show humans the true might of the Empire. Others frowned, uneasy at the idea of confrontation. Verks had planted a seed that could not be ignored. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Horizon Station continued its quiet growth. Delegates from several star systems arrived, asking for guidance on building shared networks and cooperative systems. Humans led tour through their research labs, showing the visitors how they built their communication arrays, how their logistics systems ensured no station was left behind, and how their young were taught problem-solving and collaboration from an early age. One evening, Lena walked through the observation deck, watching the soft movements of ships around the station. Humans and visitors worked together, planning, calculating, and laughing. The hum of engines and computers filled the space, but it was a gentle, living sound, not the harsh roar of weapons. We've grown so much, an officer said, walking beside her. Even since the Empire's visit, more systems want to cooperate. Yes, Lena replied. And yet we still teach humility. Cooperation is not about proving strength. It's about creating stability, and stability requires patience. Verks's presence on Horizon Station had changed more than just his own thinking. It had begun to ripple through the Empire. Counselors who had opposed him now quietly requested information on human systems. Scholars of the Empire began studying human teaching methods, human logistics, and human problem-solving. Slowly, others began to see the potential of learning from a species they once dismissed as weak. Verks spent long hours walking among the humans, observing their methods. Engineers showed him how they rerouted energy flows to prevent system overloads. Pilots demonstrated maneuvers that required precise timing and constant adjustment. Students presented problems with multiple solutions, explaining why each choice mattered. What is the point of all this? One officer had asked when Verks first arrived. The point, Verks replied, is to survive, not just today, not just against a single fleet, but for generations to come. The humans prepare for the long game. He realized that the Empire had always prepared for the short game. Strength and fear had been the tools of survival. But humans had shown him a new strategy: patience, observation, adaptation. One afternoon, Lena brought Verks to the central training room where holographic simulations flickered across the walls. Here, she said, we practice decision-making. Not reaction alone, but thinking through consequences. Each choice has a chain. Each action has a response. We simulate scenarios that no one can predict. Verks watched as a group of young humans worked together to guide a fleet through shifting obstacles. They debated, paused, and corrected themselves. Every mistake was discussed, every success analyzed. They never get frustrated, Verks said. Not the way we would, they stay calm. They are used to the unexpected, Lena replied. It is part of life for them. Verks thought of his own fleet, organized and precise, yet always expecting fear to enforce obedience. How fragile that had seemed in comparison. The humans did not rely on fear. They relied on understanding. He asked Lena, "Why do they call themselves short?" Lena smiled. "Because in comparison to the galaxy they are, but their reach is long. Their minds are long. They measure themselves by what they can do, not by their size." Verks nodded, realizing that the Empire had misunderstood the humans all along. Their physical stature was small, yes, but their impact was enormous. News from the Empire arrived constantly. Systems that had once followed orders without question now reported interest in human methods. Traders wanted to learn how to organize supply lines more efficiently. Scientists wanted to understand cooperative learning. Even minor governments began sending envoys to Horizon Station, eager to observe and adapt. Verks understood then that the humans had already won. Not through confrontation, not through weapons, but by offering something irresistible: knowledge, efficiency, and a vision that extended beyond a single lifetime. One evening, as the station's lights glimmered against the dark void of space, Verks stood beside Lena overlooking the planet below. "You've changed me," he said quietly, "not as a commander, but as a person." "And you've changed the Empire," Lena replied. "Even if they don't realize it yet. They are beginning to," he said. "Some counselors already ask questions, some are even willing to listen, but it is slow, too slow for many." "The best changes always are," Lena said. Verks looked at the ships moving gently around the station. Humans guided them with calm precision, no orders shouted, no weapons fired. Every movement was deliberate, every choice thoughtful. He realized that the galaxy was learning from humans not because of fear or dominance, but because of trust and shared knowledge. And in that moment, Verks understood something profound. The Empire had fought countless wars and ruled countless systems, yet it was the small, unassuming humans who were showing the galaxy how to truly endure. "Do you think they will ever stop learning?" he asked Lena. "Not if we do it right," she said, "and I don't plan to." Verks felt a quiet resolve settle in him. He would return to the Empire carrying more than stories of human ingenuity. He would carry proof that strength was not measured by size, rank, or weapons. Strength was measured by the ability to think, adapt, and work together. As the stars stretched endlessly beyond the station's windows, Verks realized that the future of the galaxy would not be decided in battles, but in the quiet choices of those who chose to understand, to cooperate, and to grow. And somewhere between the Empire and the humans, a new kind of power was taking shape. One that no fleet could block, no council could command, and no weapon could destroy. It was the power of thought, of collaboration, and of a species that knew how to reach far beyond its size. For the first time, Verks felt hope, not for the Empire, not yet, but for the galaxy as a whole. And as he stood there, watching human ships glide across the void, he understood that the most remarkable victories were not won in moments of violence or fear, but in the patient shaping of minds and the quiet building of a future that included everyone. The humans, small in stature, had shown that the universe could belong to those who prepared, learned, and shared. The galaxy had begun to hum with quiet change. From the outer trade routes to the bustling capitals of distant star systems, whispers of humans spread like gentle waves, touching every corner of space. The Galactic Empire, once the undisputed authority, now found itself facing not rebellion, not war, but the subtle force of curiosity, cooperation, and ingenuity. High Commander Verks watched the reports from his quarters, a slow realization settling in that the humans had already reshaped the cosmos, not with weapons, but with ideas. Back on Horizon Station, the activity was unlike anything before. Ships of many shapes and sizes glided through the docking bays. Delegates from several systems moved alongside human engineers and pilots, exchanging ideas and designs. The hallways were alive with conversation, laughter, and the soft hum of energy conduits. Humans guided, listened, and learned from the newcomers, not through command, but through example. Director Lena Park stood in the observation room, watching the flow of ships below. The lights of their engines reflected softly against the glass. She noticed Verks standing beside her, his hands folded behind his back, his gaze steady. "They are doing it again," Lena said quietly. "A small world connected, teaching others without even trying to dominate them." Verks nodded. It is remarkable. They are rewriting how power works. Lena turned to him. Your people are ready to listen now, aren't they? Verks hesitated. Some are, some will resist, but I think the seed has been planted. Meanwhile, back on the Empire's capital, the High Council met again. This time, the mood was tense, but not as it had been before. The galaxy's whispers had reached the ears of officials and scholars alike. Reports of systems adopting human methods, establishing cooperative networks, and sharing knowledge without imperial orders had become impossible to ignore. One counselor, the youngest in the assembly, leaned forward. We cannot stop this. Even if we try, the more we resist, the more they grow. Another shook his head. We are the Empire. How can we accept that a species we once dismissed as small and weak now teaches us about strength? Verk stood, his tall frame filling the space between them. Because strength is not in intimidation, strength is in survival, and the humans show us how to endure without crushing others beneath us. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some faces hardened, others softened. The Empire had survived countless wars, yet here was a force it could not fight, the quiet persistence of understanding. In the weeks that followed, the Empire began to change. Orders were replaced with suggestions, schedules with collaboration, and rigid hierarchies softened into cooperative councils. Verks worked tirelessly to share the lessons he had learned from humans, how to prepare for the unexpected, how to value every member's contribution, and how to see failure not as weakness, but as opportunity. Back at Horizon Station, Lena watched as new fleets arrived, not to challenge, but to learn. Young humans guided students from distant worlds through navigation exercises. Engineers shared techniques for managing energy flow, supply chains, and communication networks. Every interaction built trust, not fear. Verk spent long hours with her, observing, asking questions, and sometimes just listening. One day, while walking along the outer ring, he asked Lena a question that had been on his mind for weeks. Why do they follow you so willingly? He asked. Lena smiled gently. Because we show them that their ideas matter, that their voices are heard, that even small hands can build something lasting. Verks looked out at the stars. And yet, your people are small. By imperial standards, fragile. They are small in size, Lena said, but their reach is long, and it touches everything it touches. Word of the human philosophy spread even further. Independent planets began asking to join cooperative trade agreements. Systems previously locked in conflict began sharing resources and knowledge. Entire sectors of the galaxy were learning to work together, not because someone forced them, but because they saw a model that worked. Verks realized that the humans' victory over the Empire had not been a battle of fleets or weapons. It was a victory of mindset. The galaxy was changing, and the humans had become the guiding hand without lifting a sword. One day, a young human engineer approached Lena with a problem. We have a new system, he said, pointing to a complex holographic map of interstellar routes. The calculations for energy distribution don't fit the models we have. What do we do? Lena smiled. We try, we test. We fail, and then we try again. Verks watched quietly from the side. He saw the patience in every gesture, the calm determination in every choice, and the joy in learning itself. This was the kind of strength the Empire had never known. As night fell across Horizon Station, the sky outside glittered with the lights of countless ships. Verk stood on the observation deck, looking at the network of humans and their allies. The Empire had once ruled by fear. Now it had the choice to rule by understanding. He thought of the High Council, of the leaders resistant to change, of the weight of centuries of tradition. And yet he felt hope, not because the Empire had changed entirely, but because the seed of a new future had been planted. The next day, Verk sent a message to the Council. It was not a command, nor a warning. It was a story. He described the human engineers who worked late into the night solving problems that did not belong to them. He described the students who laughed when their calculations failed and cheered when they succeeded. He described the simple act of sharing knowledge as a form of strength that no fleet could overcome. And he ended with a quiet note. We are learning. We have seen the future in their actions. It is not built on fear or force, but on understanding. Perhaps the greatest empire is the one that can learn from the smallest among us. Back at Horizon Station, Lena watched the stars stretch into infinity. Do you think the Empire will listen? She asked. Verks turned to her. Some will, others will resist, but the galaxy has already begun to change, and that is enough. Throughout the galaxy, small acts of cooperation multiplied, systems shared resources. Scientists exchanged knowledge. Students across worlds studied human methods. Slowly, the Empire itself began to adopt the lessons, guided by Verx's patient insistence and the humans' unshakable example. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt less like a place ruled by fear and more like a place shaped by choice. Not every system followed the humans, and not every leader welcomed the change. But everywhere, curiosity grew. Cooperation spread. And the quiet strength of humans, small in size but vast in wisdom, touched everything it reached. One evening, as Verx and Lena stood on the observation deck watching ships glide across the void, he said quietly, "They have already won, haven't they?" Lena looked at him and nodded. "They always do, not with violence, not with fear, but with thought, patience, and unity. That is the human way." Verx allowed himself a rare smile. The Empire had seen them, and the galaxy had begun to change. And in the quiet stretches between stars, something extraordinary was unfolding. A future where strength was measured not by size, nor by power, but by how far a species could think, prepare, and lift others along the way. The humans, small in body but infinite in reach, had reshaped the galaxy without firing a shot. And the Empire, once supreme, had begun to follow, not because it had to, but because it could see the power of learning, cooperation, and quiet resilience. In that moment, standing beside Lena, watching the light of countless ships and stars, Verx understood the truth that the Empire would eventually accept. Strength did not belong to the largest, the strongest, or the fiercest. It belonged to those who could think, adapt, and inspire, and the humans had shown it to everyone. The galaxy would never be the same again.